We got that 5 p.m. advisory in from the National Hurricane Center. It includes, in this new bulletin, the possibility of a peak storm surge of 5 to 10 feet above normally dry ground at high tide, somewhere along the southern shores of Jamaica. Let's bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross for his analysis. Bryan, we've been talking about Gilbert, 1988, as the comp for this.
Tropical storm Melissa is rapidly gaining strength over the Caribbean, threatening Jamaica with potentially catastrophic flooding and winds that could reach Category 5 intensity within days. Tropical storm Melissa continues to strengthen and poses an increasing danger to Caribbean regions. Recent updates from the National Hurricane Center indicate potential coastal flooding reaching 5 to 10 feet beyond typical tide levels along Jamaica's southern coastline. Kingston is currently under observation as weather conditions deteriorate. Historical comparisons reveal concerning parallels. Hurricane Gilbert struck in 1988 as a Category 3 system during landfall, while Hurricane Sandy arrived as a Category 1, yet generated more than 8 feet of coastal flooding along Jamaica's southern beaches.
Right, a Category 3 technically at landfall. Sandy, that produced a surge of over 8 feet on the southern shores of Jamaica. That was a Category 1. It appears as though this could be a much, much worse scenario.
Yeah, well, the southern part of Jamaica has these bays all along there, and so the bays are like catcher's mitts, and they grab the storm surge, and there's no way it can get out, so it has to go over the beaches and up over.
Current projections suggest Melissa could deliver significantly more severe consequences. Jamaica's southern coastline features numerous inlet formations that function similarly to collection zones, trapping rising waters without providing escape routes. These geographical features force surging seas inland, flooding coastal areas and low-lying zones. Kingston's International Aviation Facility sits on an exposed strip of land extending into the harbor, making it particularly vulnerable. Should flooding occur as anticipated, the airport could experience inundation, potentially complicating recovery operations afterward.
There, and so the bays are like catcher's mitts, and they grab the storm surge, and there's no way it can get out, so it has to go over the beaches and up over whatever it happens to be there. As a matter of fact, in Kingston, the airport, the international airport, is out on a peninsula out in Kingston Harbor. So that is subject to being flooded in this situation, which may aggravate the recovery process. So this is a daunting thing.
The system's projected path threatens to push massive water volumes into Kingston Harbor and neighboring coastal areas throughout the island's eastern regions. Current measurements place wind speeds at 65 miles per hour, though these figures represent estimates derived from satellite imagery rather than direct aircraft measurements. As cloud patterns increasingly indicate a strengthening system, forecasters adjust their calculations accordingly. The atmospheric pressure has been estimated as lower due to the higher wind speed projections. Aircraft reconnaissance from NOAA is currently departing Florida, with additional Air Force Reserve reconnaissance scheduled for later investigation.
So that is subject to being flooded in this situation, which may aggravate the recovery process. So this is a daunting thing if the storm comes in as forecast, which is going to put tremendous amount of water into Kingston Harbor and the surrounding harbors and bays there on the eastern part of that country. All right, let's look at the 5 p.m. advisory and hear what you see. 65 miles per hour is the estimate. Now that was not measured by hurricane hunters. That was estimated.
These flights will provide more accurate data throughout the evening hours. The system's movement has shifted northward, returning closer to originally anticipated trajectories. However, predictions indicate westward movement will commence shortly as high-pressure systems build to the north. Although the high-pressure influence remains relatively weak, it should be sufficient to steer the storm southward of Jamaica initially. Satellite observations reveal significant organizational improvements compared to previous days.
Part of that country. All right, let's look at the 5 p.m. advisory and hear what you see. 65 miles per hour is the estimate. Now that was not measured by hurricane hunters. That was estimated because the satellite presentation is becoming more obviously related to a stronger storm. So they make the estimates off of that. and that's what they're estimating right now, 65 miles per hour. Because the wind is estimated to be higher, the pressure is estimated to be lower. So we're awaiting the aircraft to go in there. A NOAA aircraft is coming out of Florida.
The system now displays a well-defined circular structure with distinct outer spiral formations rotating inward. These characteristics demonstrate that atmospheric conditions surrounding the disturbance favor continued strengthening. Ocean temperatures in the Caribbean remain near record warmth, providing abundant energy for intensification. Forecasters project rapid strengthening over the coming days. By tomorrow afternoon, winds could reach 100 miles per hour, achieving hurricane strength.
65 miles per hour. Because the wind is estimated to be higher, the pressure is estimated to be lower. So we're awaiting the aircraft to go in there. A NOAA aircraft is coming out of Florida. There'll be another Air Force Reserve aircraft in there later on, and we'll get the updates here this evening. And now moving to the north, so kind of back on track of the way it was expected to go in the first place, drifting north, but the idea is that it's going to head on off to the west here pretty soon when it gets picked up by high pressure.
Sunday's forecast calls for winds approaching 140 miles per hour, qualifying as Category 4 intensity. Monday's predictions bring the system dangerously close to Category 5 classification, with winds potentially reaching 155 miles per hour. Category 5 designation requires winds of 160 miles per hour or greater, making the distinction relatively minor given forecast uncertainty. Advanced computer modeling systems, including those that have demonstrated exceptional accuracy this season, indicate a substantial probability of Category 5 intensity during this timeframe. Tracking precision remains challenging due to the system's slow movement.
It was expected to go in the first place, drifting north, but the idea is that it's going to head on off to the west here pretty soon when it gets picked up by high pressure building to the north here. Not a whole lot of it, just a weak high pressure, but it will move it over so that it moves south of Jamaica at least for a while. All right, here's the presentation from the satellite, and you can see, look what we have here today that we didn't have yesterday, is we have, first of all, a very circular looking storm up in here, but then we have these...
While the central path provides guidance, considerable uncertainty exists regarding exact positioning. Minor deviations in trajectory would produce dramatically different consequences for island communities. Even if the center passes further from land than currently forecast, the system would still likely maintain Category 4 or 5 intensity, with devastating potential impacts throughout the region. Multiple forecast models generate a range of possible tracks, creating uncertainty about precise landfall locations. When analyzing all projection scenarios collectively, Jamaica remains centered within the highest probability zone.
The presentation from the satellite, and you can see, look what we have here today that we didn't have yesterday, is we have, first of all, a very circular looking storm up in here, but then we have these bands. Look at these outer bands that are clearly rotating in. So all this is evidence of the fact that the atmosphere around this storm is conducive for intensification, and the National Hurricane Center says this is going to intensify in a big way because it's out over the water. The water is near record warm there in the Caribbean.
However, the event timing late Monday through Tuesday places it beyond the range of high confidence predictions. This distance in time means forecasts may shift considerably as new data becomes available. Models have increasingly converged toward a direct strike on Jamaica, followed by impact across eastern Cuba, then movement into the southeastern Bahamas. Confidence decreases for Wednesday's projected position, affecting the Turks and Caicos Islands and the southern portions of the Bahamas archipelago. Rainfall projections indicate extremely heavy precipitation across multiple nations.
For intensification, and the National Hurricane Center says this is going to intensify in a big way because it's out over the water. The water is near record warm there in the Caribbean. So the idea is already by tomorrow this time, you have a 100-mile-an-hour hurricane. Sunday, 140-mile-an-hour Category 4 hurricane. And then Monday up knocking on the door of Category 5. So Category 5 would be if it were 160. They're forecasting 155. Obviously, that's kind of in the noise whether this gets to be.
Haiti faces potential accumulations in the 2 to 3 foot range, with substantial rainfall also expected across the southern Dominican Republic. extending into Cuba and Jamaica. European modeling analysis shows concentrated rainfall totals reaching 2 feet in some locations, with isolated areas potentially receiving 3 feet of precipitation. Mountain ranges in these regions will enhance rainfall through orographic lifting, with accumulated moisture subsequently flowing downslope through rivers, streams, gullies, and creek systems toward the Caribbean Sea. Weather pattern analysis reveals that earlier today, European computer models showed significant divergence from Hurricane Center forecasts. Recent model runs have achieved much better alignment, though timing differences persist.
Up knocking on the door of Category 5. So Category 5 would be if it were 160. They're forecasting 155. Obviously, that's kind of in the noise whether this gets to be Category 5 or not. The Google DeepMind model that has done so well this year indeed shows a high possibility of a Category 5 in this time period. Now, we put the center line on there because the storm is moving so slowly. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on without it. But I don't want you to concentrate on it.
The overall directional consensus now points toward impacts across Cuba before continuing into the Bahamas region. Given typical forecast error margins for events occurring late Monday through Tuesday, all of Jamaica remains within the plausible impact zone. Track adjustments remain possible, so premature declarations of safety would be unwise. Western regions, including areas like Montego Bay, cannot yet assume they will avoid severe impacts. Detailed track information won't become reliable for approximately 48 additional hours. The entire island nation confronts a substantial threat regardless of minor track variations. Advanced modeling systems that have proven highly reliable throughout the season show scenarios with the storm center traversing Jamaica's central regions, presenting an unsettling possibility given these models' accuracy records. Kingston's airport elevation averages roughly 3 meters, just under 10 feet, according to facility data. This elevation coincides with the maximum storm surge forecast, suggesting significant flooding risk. The airport occupies landfill extending into the harbor via a causeway connection. Runway infrastructure projects into harbor waters, creating flood vulnerability. Should predicted storm surge materialize, the facility will likely become inoperative, remaining non-functional until cleanup and repairs are completed. With only one runway available, the facility's closure could force travelers to utilize Montego Bay's airport for evacuation and supply operations, particularly if the storm tracks across or near Kingston, as some projections indicate. Continuous monitoring through the weekend and early portions of next week will be essential as the situation evolves and additional information becomes available. All affected regions should maintain preparedness and closely follow official guidance as this dangerous weather system approaches.